Let's rock and roll. Welcome back to another episode of Tales, Trails. So it's a Sunday night, so it's a little weird because we just it's like last minute recording, so it's okay.
Your blank pause there for like 30 seconds was pretty funny, Joe.
It was a malfunction inside my head too. It was like a technical error or anything. It was all me. It was all hardware driven. But yeah, so I mean, it's been a good week. It started snowing. Hey, I was just on the Spooky Shed podcast. So if you guys listen to that, yeah, you should check that out. I got to sit down and talk with Liam. Apparently, I had forgotten, but I was the first guest when they switched over to this for the Spooky Shed podcast. I was the first official guest for that podcast.
Yeah.
So then he had me come back on for.
Was Billy there or was Billy still a con?
Billy's still in contact barely. It was just Liam, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so, I mean, good talk, good chat. It's on YouTube. It's on Apple, Spotify, all those places, man. So check it out if you haven't seen that one.
Hopefully it's not warm tomorrow. Go for a walk.
Yeah, it's been snowing here, and then Saturday night, last night for me, we took the Cub Scouts up to Sturbridge Village overnight, so that was super cool. It's not very often to get to walk around at night in a 1830s village, you know.
Right.
So very cool. I got a lot of good pictures from that. I'm gonna share a bunch of them, but
Sturbridge is that's a nice little town. I've driven through there before.
yeah, we didn't spend a lot of time in town except for in the old Sturbridge Village, but it was super neat, you know.
Cool, man.
Had a lot of fun. Yeah, the kids loved it. Kids had a blast, and that's the point, you know.
I was in Scouts till about 12, and then I just was like, yeah, I'm not really into this anymore.
Yeah, I can't remember when I stopped. I was a teenager when I stopped doing scouts. And I mean, I liked it. I don't remember why we stopped. It was just, I think I was out of it for a couple years and tried to get back into it. And it just wasn't. It wasn't the same when I came back.
It's called girls. You just get to a point where you go through puberty and all you care about is girls.
Yeah, no, my son's still in the hangs out with his boys and no girls allowed type thing.
Yeah, but that'll probably change in
He's
like
he's
2, 3 years.
he's still there. Yeah, I know we're on the verge of it at some point.
Especially your boy, he's gonna be a stud. He's probably gonna be like 6'5", for Christ's sake.
Oh my god. He tells me he's like, Dad, I don't like girls, and I'm like, they like you, buddy. I don't know what to tell you because he's got every time I used to take him out in town and like take him around, and I swear to God, man, in the summertime, no matter where I go, there's some little girl in town who's like, "Hi, Reese." I'm like, oh my God, it's so funny.
Dude, when I was a little kid, there was this wicked cute girl named Kaylee O'Donnell that was like obsessed with me.
Yeah.
And she'd like chase me around the soccer field and like kiss me around on the cheek. And I was like, like 8, 9 years old. I was like, oh, like I didn't like girls then.
Yeah.
My father used to joke. He's like, in a few years from now, you're gonna be wishing cute girls were chasing you around, kissing you.
There will come a day when you. Yep.
When the tables turn.
How the turntables, man. All right,
Yeah.
so tonight, man, you got a story for us tonight. One we haven't covered before.
Yeah.
More of a true crime than a paranormal one, but I like it.
Yeah, but you know what? It's heavily entrenched in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah.
History and lore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my best, folks, to make sure I get the articles down right. My phone did a fucking upgrade last night.
Oh, fun.
So you ever have that happen? And it's like the way you operate your phone is like night and day now.
Yeah, I have that happen a lot where the apps update and then I'm like, I have no idea how to use this app anymore, and it takes a while to like reconfigure myself and like get it back on track. You know.
I made sure I wrote down the order of the articles that I want to do it in.
Yeah.
So just this is a little more organized,
Nice.
But folks, tonight on Tales, Trails, and Taverns, we are going to focus on the infamous satanic cult killings in Fall River, Massachusetts in 1980.
Oh boy, taking it back, man.
We're taking it back to 1980.
Love it.
So, first article I'm going to start with. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so hold on one second. All right, so this first article is from Cult Nation.
Okay.
If they openly worship the occult, but it's a pretty good article, so I'm going to run with it.
Yeah.
All right. So, Cult Nation history, sex, Satanism, and sacrificial slaughter. The Fall River cult murders of 1979 and 1980. The New Age may have dawned in the 1960s, but it would never fully shine. For many, spiritual awakenings would lead to something of an existential crisis as the harsh realities of the following decade began to encroach on our lives. Some found refuge in communes, others turned to drugs or diet fads, and many would join the ranks of new religious movements, a cluster of fringe Christian, Eastern mystic, neo-pagan, and various self-help groups that claim to offer a path to self-discovery and a higher purpose. The spirit of religious revival was in the air, but not everybody was celebrating. The inevitable backlash to these often strange and sometimes dangerous new religions, religious sects, led to the rise of countercultural movement. Not surprisingly, Christian fundamentalists would play a lead role. The shock propaganda of counterculturalists successfully tapped into the social anxiety of the day and found broad support among concerning parents. With more women joining the workforce and increasing numbers of teenagers left to their own devices, there was a new level of fear and uncertainty within the nuclear family unit. The threat of one's children falling victim to some crazed cult seems very real, or so the public was led to believe. From within the social context, a cultural phenomenon known as satanic panic was born.
The old
Fueled
satanic panic, man.
by religious fanatics, quack psychiatrists, and the tabloid media, it was claimed that a vast satanic criminal network existed throughout the country. Organized devil worshippers were responsible for any number of heinous acts, including kidnapping, child abuse, animal mutilation, rape, torture, human sacrifice, and even cannibalism, all of which were taking place under our very noses. At its height, the satanic panic was akin to a modern-day witch hunt. Otherwise, rational people got caught up in the hysteria, and a number of lives were ruined, often based on nothing more than the twisted fantasies of the accusers themselves. Eventually, the leading occult criminal experts were discredited and public perception would shift in a more rational direction, but by then, the damage had already been done. Obviously, the idea of some satanic criminal conspiracy is absurd. However, as it turns out, the claims weren't entirely unfounded. Though isolated and few in numbers, they were indeed criminal, and they put in parentheses, cults, comprised of self-styled Satanists active during this time period, including some that embodied or more likely imitated all of the worst scare stories that parents had been warned about. The devil comes to Fall River.
Huh. Yeah. All right.
All right. So by the late 1970s, the hope and promise of the prior decade seemed like a distant memory as the national landscape came to be defined by recession, unemployment, and rising crime rates. The once prosperous textile city of Fall River, Massachusetts was particularly hit hard. Factories closed, buildings were abandoned, and the downtown area had become a total wasteland. leaving behind an economic void that provided fertile ground for a thriving trade in drugs and prostitution. Amidst this urban decay, a series of murders took place between October 1970 and February of 1980. Two young women, both local prostitutes, had been bound, raped, tortured, and bludgeoned to death. The third victim's body would never be found beyond a skull fragment and a clump of hair left in the nearby forest. Yeah, so that was the third victim.
Yeah, that's a small piece to find though.
Just like a chunk of her skull.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, the investigation into the brutal killings resulted in a tabloid media frenzy with headlines that seemed to confirm the most outlandish satanic panic fear-mongering. In the end, the Fall River cult murders became the most sensational criminal case to come out of the city since Lizzie Borden stood trial for bludgeoning her parents to death nearly a century earlier.
Oh, man.
The first victim was found on October 13th, 1979. Doreen Levesque, a 17-year-old runaway from New Bedford, Mass., was discovered behind the Diamond Vocational High School. Her wrist had been
Yeah. I like how they threw Lizzie Borden in there. Yeah, right. Like, oh, hey, by the way, you know what else happened in Fall River? The Lizzie Borden axe murder. Right? It's like textile mills and murder. To claim to fame.
mills, murders, and fentanyl overdoses.
Yeah, nowadays fentanyl overdoses. Yeah.
So let me start from the top, all right?
Yep.
Not the whole top. Okay. The body of the first victim was found on October 13th, 1979. Doreen Levesque, a 17-year-old runaway from New Bedford, was discovered behind Diamond Vocational High School. Her wrists had been bound with fishing line, and there were signs of sexual torture. She also had been stabbed in the head several times and suffered multiple skull fractures.
Jesus.
Police discovered that the girl had been prostituting herself and initially suspected one of her clients of committing the murder. However, the county medical examiner determined that the killing was likely committed by multiple people, and the forensics evidence also suggested a ritual element to the crime, a possible death by stoning. The trail of blood left behind would soon lead the investigation in a different and much darker direction. As it turns out, Fall River's criminal underworld was ruled by Satan at this time. Yes, that's Satan. If the witnesses' accounts of various drug addicts and low-level criminals are believed to be true, the local vice trade was controlled by a cult of devil worshippers who took their directives from the Prince of Darkness himself, who in turn was paid off in sacrificial blood and human souls.
Oh boy, they just went right to the source of evil here with this one.
Oh yeah. Children of the Night. A couple months after the discovery of Doreen Levesque's battered corpse, a man by the name of Andy Maltese visited the Fall River police station. He was there to file a missing persons report for his girlfriend, a 22-year-old prostitute named Barbara Raposa, like Levesque, who also worked the Bedford Street area as a prostitute. Maltese told the police that he feared for the woman's safety. He then mumbled something about a satanic cult and claimed to have information relating to Levesque's murder. With no other leads in the case, they arranged for a formal interview to see exactly what this man knew. By all accounts, Andy Maltese was a mentally unstable creep. He was a pedophile, a sexual sadist, and a violent rapist, and as of recent religious conversion, a devout a devout Christian. But Andy Maltese did have a criminal record of sexual assault on minors and attempted rape at one point. Yeah, so this guy wasn't exactly what you'd say a credible witness.
Yeah, right.
Maltese says, Jesus is now my personal Lord and Savior, the 44-year-old New Bedford man told the police as he held up a small Bible to prove his newfound faith. Once I worshiped Satan, but now I worship Jesus. It was an odd way to begin the interview, the cops thought.
Yeah, right. Nice.
According to his statements, Andy and his girlfriend Barbara were practicing Satanism at the time of her disappearance. Members of a local cult. Doreen Levesque was also involved with the group prior to her murder. He claimed to have no direct knowledge of the crime, but told the police that he believed the cult was to be responsible. The story seemed far-fetched and was received with skepticism, but Maltese was very insistent. He offered to arrange a meeting with two other cult members who he was sure had more direct information in relating to the case. A few days later, police were introduced with Karen Marsden and Robin Murphy. Karen Marsden was a 20-year-old single mother. Like many of her other peers who worked in the Four Rivers Red Light District, she was a runaway, a drug addict, and a prostitute. Police accounts describe her as a nervous and an emotional person. Robin Murphy was the exact opposite. Cold, deliberate, and calculated. The younger of the two. She was only 17 at the time. Both prostitutes and an aspiring pimp, Murphy was a tough street kid who was described as possessing a high degree of intelligence and a domineering personality, and she was known to be extremely violent if tested. So this Robin Murphy chick at 17 was one bad chick.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Girls were open about their relationship as roommates and lesbian lovers. So they were not only prostitutes, and Murphy was the pimp, but they were also in a relationship, these two girls.
Yeah.
The girls, okay. Their connection to Andy Maltese, however, was left vague. They knew him from around. Throughout the interview, Murphy remained silent, studying the officers and occasionally scowling at her friend. Karen Marsden did all the talking, rambling at various levels of coherency. She eventually broke down in tears and told the police Carl Drew killed Doreen Levesque. Far from unknown to local authorities, Carl Drew was a 26-year-old pimp with a violent reputation who ran his business on the Bedford Street district of Fall River. Originally from New Hampshire, he had been raised on a small farm. In later interviews, he would speak about a childhood marked with hard labor and physical abuse. One cruel coming-of-age story involved his alcoholic father tying a rope around the terrified boy's ankles and lowering down into a well to remove a cluster of dead rats.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not a very good upbringing.
Definitely not. Drew eventually ran away from home at a young age of 14 and found his place among Fall River's criminal underground, keeping company with bikers, drug addicts, and prostitutes. Carl Drew certainly fits the profile of someone who was capable of the type of savagery unleashed on Doreen Levesque. He also had a direct connection to the victim. He was her pimp. Unfortunately, there was nothing to link him to the murder beyond the unsubstantial claim of a young drug addict. Marsden was pressed for more details and even offered witness protection for her cooperation, but she gave no further information. Only a final statement promising that if she were to turn up dead, it would be Drew who would be responsible for it. Detectives from Fall River Major Crime Division would remain in contact with Karen Marsden in the weeks that followed, hoping to learn more about the Fall River cult, as this motley group of pimp and prostitute practitioners of the black arts came to be known. I'm a good person, Marston sobbed. I believe in God. Fearing for her life, she referred to Carl Drew as the devil himself, and she told police of the consequences she expected for her betrayal of him. In a narrative that mirrored the Manson family cult, she claimed that Drew organized his prostitution ring as a satanic coven that he ruled with an iron fist. Satan will take his toll, he would threaten the girls. For the more Christian fearful like Marsden, this meant not only violent death, she also believed that her soul would be sacrificed and cast up into the flaming pits of hell for eternity. Accompanied by Carol Fletcher, another young area prostitute with ties to the cult, Marsden took police to the nearby Freetown State Forest. It was here that the girls claimed that the cult held their nocturnal gatherings. As they passed by an algae-covered pool of water, Marsden cowered in fear. This is where she was told that Carl Drew would dump her body after injecting battery acid into her veins and offering her soul to Satan.
Jesus.
Yeah. When it came to the threats of violence, the feared pimp seemed to excel in morbid creativity. Another girl who worked for Drew was named Cookie, aka Mildred Jukes. Later told the police of his planned retribution against a woman who had gotten her arrested for prostitution. He said he was going to kill her for it, she claimed. Tie her to a tree to be sacrificed and pour warm blood from a live goat all over her face. Carl Drew, Satanist bad man. If the stories were to be believed, it would seem that the detectives had their murder suspect. However, as they got Karen Marsden talking more, they came to find out that Drew was not the only dangerous individual in her life. As it turns out, Robin Murphy, her teenage friend and lover, also had a dark side, a very dark side. Even before her introduction to the Circle of Satanists based out of Bedford Street's red light district, the young girl had long been dabbling in the occult. She was also described by those around her as being psychologically unstable and prone to extreme violence. Far from being an unwilling participant or minor player, the young girl would soon emerge and possibly the central figure involved in the Fall River cult murders. Ritual offerings. As the detectives were becoming familiar with this murky cast of characters associated with the Fall River cult, another body had been discovered. On January 26, 1980, whoa, that's right around the corner, 26. That'll be 46 years.
You say January 26th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's 8 days from 7 days from when this episode comes out.
46-year anniversary.
Yeah.
The frozen and bloodied corpse of Barbara Raposa was found in the woods behind an abandoned printing factory. Her wrists were tied together with fishing line, and she had been sexually assaulted, and her skull had been crushed with a rock. Another local prostitute and Satanist dabbler killed in cold blood. The Levesque case had given the police a glimpse into the strange and shadowy underworld that existed in their city. It also gave them a circle of potential suspects, some of who were already under investigation. It didn't take long to connect the dots. The first to be interviewed in the connection with Raposa's murder was Andy Maltese, the last known person to see her alive. A nervous Maltese denied any knowledge of the crime. However, a few days later, he contacted the police after receiving details of a murder in a psychic dream. Very specific details. Police played along and brought Maltese to the crime scene, allowing him to describe what he had seen in his quotations dream. It turns out that he was quite the caveat, knowing exactly where the woman's body had been discovered its positioning, time of death, method of killing, and various other details that were not made to the public at the time.
Jesus.
His quotation, psychic testimony was indeed helpful to the investigation, although probably not in the way he intended it. A confused Maltese was soon found himself in handcuffs and charged for the murder.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
In the days following his arrest, the investigation went further in the assistance from an unexpected source, Robin Murphy, when she contacted the police and offered to testify against Andy Maltese as a witness to the murder. She also claimed to have been present for the killing of Dorian Levesque and agreed to turn state evidence in that case as well. In exchange for her cooperation, she broke a deal where she would be placed in protective custody and granted immunity for both murders. The story she gave the police and later repeated it in court was that Annie Maltese had killed Barbara Raposa after discovering that she had been cheating on him with another man. Murphy claimed to have been with them both on the night of the murder. They had all been partying together, and while driving around the city, and at some point the couple started arguing. Maltese then parked the car behind the abandoned factory, dragged Raposa out of the car by her hair, and raped her. She cried for help, and he proceeded to beat her, first with his fist, and then picking up a large rock and smashing it into her head. Afterwards, he drove off with Murphy, leaving his bloody girlfriend to crawl away all on her own. Why didn't Murphy go to the police sooner? She claimed that Maltese had threatened her with the same fate if she was to talk. It was only after he was behind bars that she felt safe enough to come forward with her story. It was a testimony full of holes, but given his past history of violent sexual transgression, it would be enough to put Andy Maltese away for the rest of his life. With rumors of Satanism and human sacrifice in the air, the more mundane, jealous, rage motive came as something of media disappointment, barely even worthy of a front-page headliner. What about Carl Drew and his cult of murderous black-robed followers? Those details would come to light during Murphy's recounting of Doreen Levesque's murder. Although the forensic evidence was near identical to the Raposa case, according to Murphy, there was no direct connection between the two except the fact that she had happened to be present for both the killings. The killing of Doreen Levesque, an offering to the soul of Satan, she would tell the police. And as expected, she said Carl Drew was the one who carried out the ritual. Murphy claimed that the teenage prostitute recently left Drew's coven with the intentions of working the street on her own. Unfortunately, leaving the group wasn't easy and wasn't an option in Carl Drew's eyes. Satan had it that needed to be paid. Aiming to tracked down his former employee at a Bedford Street bar and forced her into his car. Robin Murphy, Karen Marsden, and a man named Willie, who was Drew's friend and a fellow Satanist, came along for the ride. Threatened Levesque, telling her that couldn't afford to work on the streets alone, and backhanded her across the face. They pulled behind the high school, and the two men took the girl out of sight. Murphy stayed in the car. According to her initials, Murphy heard no screams and claimed to see nothing. After a while, the men returned without Levesque, and the four of them drove away. When asked what happened to her, Drew replied, "You don't want to know." Murphy's version of the events may have been plausible if Doreen Levesque had been, say, quietly smothered or strangled, but the testimony didn't at all match up with the forensics evidence left behind, which painted an extremely violent picture of sexual assault, prolonged torture, and a very bloody and violent. It's hard to believe that she heard no screams or saw no evidence of blood on either man. Also, according to her, the whole ordeal was over a matter of minutes. In fact, she told the police that she wasn't even certain that Levesque had been murdered until she saw it in the newspaper a few days following. And her story evolved to include various gory details and satanic embellishments, all of which apparently slipped her mind during the initial interview. The sacrifice of Karen Marsden. Robin Murphy wasn't the only cult member talking to the police at the time. Since her initial interview, Karen Marsden continued to stay in touch with the detectives working the case. It's generally believed that she was present for both murders, though her recollections were sharply contrast with Murphy's version of the events. While she maintained that Carl Drew was the cult figurehead behind these killings, she pointed to Murphy as also playing a direct leading role. In particular, according to Marsden, used her erratic behavior and her unwillingness to testify in court, her statements were basically treated as gossip by police.
So they're having trouble finding reliable witnesses in this case, huh?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of hearsay and this and that.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that they doubted her claims, only that they were unable to do much with the information she had provided them with. Right. She also seemed to get worse with each meeting. At the time of her final interview, she was on the verge of an emotional breakdown, convinced that she would be the next one to be sacrificially murdered. In the end, this paranoia would be well found. She was reported missing on February 9th, 1980. 2 months later, a grisly discovery was made in a nearby beach town of Westport. While cleaning a parcel of land near Duval Pond, a man stumbled across a top half of a human skull. Police arrived on the scene and conducted a more detailed search of the area. They turned up the decaying carcass of 3 cats, sheep bones, and clumps of human hair. They also found some jewelry, high-heeled shoes, and pieces torn from a woman's sweater. Forensics determined that the skull belonged to Karen Marsden. Soon after, a woman named Maureen Sonny Sparata contacted the police and named Robin Murphy as Karen's killer. The inter-cult killings had gone too far. Sonny was a former prostitute who lived in the Harbor Terrace housing projects near Fall River's waterfront. She hosted a number of satanic gatherings in her apartment and acted as something of a den mother figure to these young prostitutes, runaways, and drug users who hung out there. She was also Murphy's ex-lover. According to her, Robin had admitted to the murder during a phone conversation. Carol Fletcher, who accompanied Marsden when she took the police on a tour of the Freetown State Forest a few months earlier, also came forward with information. She claimed that Robin Murphy and Carl Drew were responsible for the murder. Drew's friends, Carl Davis, a pimp who operated out of both of Fall River and nearby Providence, Rhode Island, was also present. Fletcher himself had driven the group out to the secluded woods of the Freetown State Forest where the satanic sacrifice took place. As part of her witness protection agreement in the Raposa case, Robin Murphy was relocated to Dallas, Texas, where she was staying with a friend until Maltese went to trial. Following the accusations that connected her to Karen Marsden's murder, a warrant was issued for her arrest, and she was immediately brought back to Fall River, Massachusetts. Carl Drew and Carl Davis were also indicted and placed under arrest. They weren't hard to track down, as both of them were serving short sentences in county jail on unrelated charges. During her...
Shit.
Yeah. So they were already in county jail.
Yep.
During her interrogation, Robin Murphy broke down, told police everything. In truth, it is a story that would continually evolve throughout the trial and be reincanted during parole hearings years later. Karen Marsden had become too much of a liability. She was a witness to the killing of Dorian Levesque and was rumored to have gone to the police. Carl Drew decided her fate. With the help of Carl Davis, he forced Murphy to take part in the murder as an act of loyalty to the cult. According to her statements, Murphy was made to drag Marsden from the car and pull her out by her hair. This was followed by a ritual stoning by Drew, Murphy, Fletcher, and Davis. Drew then cut off Marsden's fingers to make her feel the pain and broke her neck with his bare hands. While in a trance-like state and under the direction of Drew, Murphy followed up by slitting Marsden's throat with a knife that was handed to her by Davis. The two men then tore the girl's head off and kicked it around the woods like a soccer ball.
Jesus.
Yeah.
These people are psychopaths. Yeah, that's pretty gruesome. It's pretty gruesome shit, man.
I mean, dude, if half of this shit is true, it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, right.
The frenzied post-mortem defilement would reach its climax as homage was paid to Satan. Drew carved an X into Marsden's torso and began to speak in tongues, offering her soul to the Dark Lord. He then dipped his thumb into her blood and made an X on Murphy's forehead. To break one final moral taboo, Murphy was made to perform oral sex on the headless cadaver before it was dumped in the woods, doused in gasoline, and burned to ashes.
Jesus Christ.
The autonomy of devil worship. The more bizarre claims made during the Fall River cult murder investigations, like much of the evidence associated with cult-related cases during the Satanic Panic, are likely works of fiction. Many of the facts are, in fact, based on the word of mentally unstable young women who were known to manipulate those around her. It has also eventually came to light that a fair bit of witness tampering, manipulation, and misconduct took place throughout the investigation by police, including detectives who may have helped frame the case based upon their own strongly held Catholic beliefs. However, the fact remains that three women, all connected through their occupations and their extracurricular occult activities, were brutally murdered under very similar circumstances. It's tempting to dismiss the cult as nothing more than a tool of fear used to control Fall River's young and impressionable prostitutes, or even a diversion to conceal the true motives behind these violent crimes. But it appears that, at least in some form, a satanic group existed in the area around this time, and most people definitely believe it was connected to the case in some way, shape, or form. Some by their own admissions. It's unlikely that all of them had imagined what they had seen or had taken place. In fact, two detectives from Fall River's major crime divisions were managed to witness one of the group's black masses held in Sonia Sparata's apartment firsthand as part of the investigation. These two undercover detectives said, "We prayed to Satan, we chanted, we tried to conjure him," they explained. In attendance that night were Carl Drew, Robin Murphy, Sparata, and a few other Bedford Street regulars. Assembling under a large mural of the devil painted on the living room wall, congregants formed a circle and started to chant, "Hail Satan, Hail Satan," leading the ceremony with a woman later identified as a prostitute from Providence, Rhode Island. Although this particular meeting ended in an anticlimactic, Sparata described the more lively black mass gatherings took place deep in the Freetown State Forest. She denied any knowledge of human sacrifice, but admitted that goats and stray cats were usually killed and tortured during these ceremonies.
It's terrible.
The warm blood would be used in mock baptisms and poured over the heads of the gathering conjurers. During the course of these rituals, it's claimed participants lost consciousness or spoke in tongues. Satan appears in a form where we feel his presence, or he can take possession of us sporadically. You can tell when Satan is there. Some people even let him speak through them in his own language. It isn't a human language. There's no way anyone on earth could fake that. Later on, Robin Murphy made similar claims. In addition to the chanting and the incoherent speeches, she noted the use of the skull and a substance believed to be human blood during sacrifices and ceremonies. She claimed to have attended such cult gatherings between October 1979 and February of 1980, including the two where Levesque and Marsden were killed. The beliefs of the Fall River cult could best be described as a cruel form of theatic Satanism, that is literal devil worship. I worship Satan, Caldrew would tell the police while undergoing interrogation. I worship him like you worship your God. Satan, in quotations, was not treated as some philosophical archetype or metaphor. He was the theist embodiment of pure evil cast in the Christian traditions. For people like Drew, there is a power in evil, a power that could be harnessed through satanic devotion and used to control the city's vice trade. As Burton Wolfe wrote in his introduction to Anton LaVey's The Satanic Bible, is based on the belief that human beings are inherently selfish, violent creatures, that life is a Darwinian struggle for the survival of the fittest, and that only the strong survive, and the earth will be ruled by those who fight to win ceaseless competitions that exist in all jungles, including those urbanized societies. The practices of the group were known as the hometown variety, with no known connections to any of the established Satanist organizations that existed at the time. If anything, the cult's nocturnal gatherings most likely resembled the type of worship associated with various charismatic Christian sects, albeit inverted versions, with participants claiming to speak in tongues, conjure deities, and achieve altered states of consciousness. Much of this was likely inspired by the occult horror movies and the type of activities that tabloid media attributed to Satanists during the Satanic Panic era. Blood sacrifices also played an important role in the group's rituals. They kill every 30 days or so on a full moon. Cult member Cookie would tell the police. It's always a ritual that they are offering up the victim as a sacrifice to Satan. Like many of the claims made, it is unclear how much of this was based on reality and how much was based on rumor. At the very least, animal sacrifices did seem to take place based on witness accounts, but it was never proven that the group performed collective acts of ritual murder on human victims. Although details of satanic worship would come up repeatedly throughout the trial, the prosecution decided it would only complicate the proceedings if they explicitly connected the three murders to a broader conspiracy. However, if the three murders were indeed self-styled sacrifices offered to Satan, the details of sexual torment and prolonged torture do follow a certain logic. In addition to satisfying sadistic urges, psychologist Gail Friedman writes in her study of ritualized abuse, torture is to force the victim to maximize the state of emotional arousal, where it is believed that the greatest amount of life force is extracted at the moment of their death. Throughout the investigation, police heard numerous references to the Freetown State Forest. This is where most of the group's activities were centered. The forest has its own dark history, serving as a location for a number of violent crimes and tragic events over the years. Some say that the 5,000-acre reservation is cursed land. It's also known as a hotbed for paranormal activity. Perhaps this is what draws occultists to meet here to uncover the darkness. For clues relating to the three murders, police discovered an abandoned shack where they claimed that the group held orgies and prepared for their ritual activities. A number of cult-related items were discovered at the site, but no evidence that could be tied to any of the crimes. Gatherings were held deeper in the forest around the altar, a large flat stone slab where torchlit ceremonies were performed over the bodies of naked prostitutes and animals who were bled out in Satan's honor. The Freetown State Forest would continue to be a gathering point for area Satanists and other dark-minded individuals, with evidence of ritual activities long after the Fall River cult murder trials. In November of 1988, a hunter stumbled across a camouflage bunker located off of one of the more remote hiking trails. Police were called out to investigate. Upon entering the structure, they found an unsettling cache of items: dolls with their eyes gouged out, animal bones, a rusted butcher's knife, and small wooden chairs, and tattered young children's clothing all over the place. That same year, a dozen of calves were found mutilated in the forest, and the corpse of Elizabeth Gregory, buried in a remote forest cemetery in 1868, was dug up and taken away from her grave. The cult
Jesus.
activity was suspected in all three cases.
Huh.
Yeah, there was a lot of fucking crazy shit that was going down.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I know when we went out to a Sonnet Ledge, we went by one of those cabins that Carl Drew had, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah, they put an Indian peace circle there, if you remember.
Yeah. So you can listen to that one of our episodes. We went out to a Sonnet Ledge. We checked that out. Have you ever found the stone slab?
No.
I know you've talked about this case a lot, and you talked about the places that it happened. So
I mean, I've walked countlessly around those woods. I've tried to find that lady's Elizabeth. I've tried to find her grave before.
yeah,
I know it's somewhere in the woods, more so on the Sonnet side.
I gotcha.
I've never been able to find it.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much. So, do you want to hear the conclusion of everything?
Yeah.
There's only like a little bit left.
Okay.
All right. Conclusion. There are some who say that the Fall River cult never really existed. It was simply a product of the satanic panic, made up entirely by the police and the tabloid media to sensationalize the grisly slaying of 3 young prostitutes who may or may have not dabbled in the occult, and connected them in a way that would capture the public's imagination and perhaps advance a few personal careers. Given the social climate of the time, these claims are not exactly out of the realm of possibility. In fact, Carl Drew himself denies being involved in such a group. I was thrown into the middle of a mass nightmare that involved a masquerade of accusations of devil worship and human sacrifice. That's bizarre because it said in his testimony that he worships Satan. So he's kind of like going back on what he said.
Right.
Drew claims in his autobiographical retelling of his case, totally off the wall accusations that was read out of some thriller novel. None true as far as I was involved in anything or nothing like that which was being said. However, there are also those who claim that Murphy, Drew, and Maltese were only a small piece of the puzzle, and a much larger satanic criminal organization remains deeply rooted in both Bristol County and neighboring Providence County, Rhode Island. Some people have even pointed out to the locally famous Mary Lou Aruda and unsolved forest. Remember, I mentioned this guy once, the unsolved Bedford highway killer cases as potentially tied to the diabolical network. In the fall of 1978, the body of Mary Lou Aruda, a 15-year-old girl abducted from Rainham, Massachusetts, was discovered in the Freetown State Forest. Her hands were bound behind her back, and she was tied to an oak tree by her throat, dying of external asphyxiation. So pretty much she choked to death. A man named James Cater was eventually convicted of the crime, but not everybody is convinced of his guilt. Although it was reported at the time, a large cross was discovered near the body. The crime scene also happens to be in an area of the forest where ritual evidence would later be discovered during the Fall River cult murder investigation. 10 years later, serial killer murdered at least 9 prostitutes by strangulation and left their bodies by sides of various Bristol County highways. According to Alan Alves, whom my dad was actually very good friends with, a Freetown detective who worked on these cases, cross was nailed on a tree near the body of the first victim that was discovered. He further claimed that small crosses and makeshift altars were found in general areas of some of the victims as well. The case remains unsolved. Of course, this is all speculation fueled by residual satanic panic, conspiracy theories, and local fears. No one can deny that a lot of strange and violent activity took place in such a relatively small geographical area over a period of a decade, but officially there's nothing that truly connects these crimes. The Fall River cult, if it existed at all, seems to have been relatively small and an informal group that consisted of perhaps up to a dozen people, and may have been used by some to connect with other street kids, runaways, outcasts, and others as a means to consolidate their small criminal fiefdoms. I guess that's what that word says. All seem to have interest in practicing evil through devil worship. The details of the 3 killings that were attributed to the group were murky at best, if not entirely unconvincing. Were these cult murders in the sense of collectively organized and carried out by a group as a particular broader satanic agenda, or were these committed by individuals from within this social circle who acted on their own personal motives? Either way, it would not be wrong to conclude that a particular version of Satanism group allegedly practiced, coupled with crimes brought in by participants themselves, provide fertile ground or else the perfect cover-up for these brutal killings where they took place. And that is the end of that.
I see. So they're not entirely convinced that the satanic panic was true or that the satanic cult actually existed. They just feel like it was a scapegoat for a lot of things.
They don't know if it's true or if it existed or like what really happened. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
It's all kind of hearsay, you know?
I mean, obviously this guy was a pimp. He was a bad guy. He was killing people, but you got to be evil on some level to want to do that shit.
So that was the main article, and then this article right here is just gonna give. This is really quick, Joe. I'll blow through this in like 2 minutes.
Okay.
So this is the Fall River cult murders: Doreen LeBeck, Barbara Raposa, and Karen Marsden. This was actually written on January 22nd, 2025. So this kind of gives you a breakdown of everything and like, you know, as far as jail time and all that stuff when all the dust settled.
Yeah.
So October 13th, 1979, Doreen LeBeck's body was found under the bleachers outside of a Fall River high school. November 7th, 1979, 19-year-old Barbara Raposa went missing. January 27th, 1980, Barbara Raposa's body was found in the woods behind an old print shop in Fall River, Mass. February 7th, 1980, 42-year-old Andy Maltese was arrested and charged with Barbara's murder. The two had previously been in some romantic relationship, and it's believed that Andy was the father of Barbara's baby. February 8th, 1980, Karen Marsden disappeared. April 13th, 1980, Karen's skull was found outside of Fall River and was identified using previous x-rays of her sinuses. The rest of her body was never found. May 1980. Charges for the murder of Karen Marsden were filed against 25-year-old Carl Drew, 24-year-old Carl Davis, and 17-year-old Robin Murphy. Carl Drew would also later be charged for the murder of Doreen Lebec under the theory that he killed Karen to keep her quiet about Doreen's murder. January of 1981, Robin Murphy took a plea deal. She would have a chance at parole in exchange for her testimony against her co-defendants. The same month, she testified against Andy Maltese for the murder of Barbara Raposa after claiming she had witnessed it. Andy was found guilty and charged with life in prison without the possibility of parole. March 13th, 1981, Carl Drew was found guilty of the murder of Karen Marsden based largely on the testimony of Robin Murphy. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. November 8th, 1983, all remaining charges against defendants for the murders of Doreen Lebec and Karen Marsden were dropped after Robin Murphy's attorney led prosecutions know that her testimony will no longer help them. In 1988, Andy Maltese died behind bars. In May of 2004, Robin Murphy was granted parole and released to a halfway house. In November of 2004, at a hearing asking for a new trial, multiple witnesses against Carl Drew recanted their previous testimony. However, a judge still denied his motion. 2011, on a parole violation, Robin Murphy was sent back to prison.
Good.
May 2021, the Fall River docuseries proposed an alternative theory of the crime, one of which would mean Carl Drew and Robin Murphy were in prison for a crime they didn't commit. March of 2024, Robin Murphy was paroled and has recanted her statements in regards to witnessing the murders of Doreen Lebec, Barbara Raposa, and Karen Marsden, and Carl Drew still remains incarcerated to this day.
All right.
So, as of March of 2024, Robin Murphy's been released from prison. She's walking the streets.
Yeah. Any idea where she's at? She's probably... I mean, I don't want to look her up, but...
Listen, tell you a quick story.
I don't want to see her out in the streets.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
A guy that used to work for me for the junk removal business, that was his grandmother's sister, Robin Murphy.
Shit.
She was his great aunt.
Yeah.
I didn't believe him, but he showed me things like pictures and family photo books.
Yeah.
Turns out he actually was related to her.
Oh, no kidding.
She's in Fall River, laying low.
I mean, you can't really go that far when you're on parole, right? You can't leave the state anyways.
I don't want to give up his name.
Yeah, don't. Yeah.
Dude, I offered to pay like $300 to talk to her for an hour, and she refused.
Oh. I know you were talking about that. I didn't realize you actually got in touch.
Dude, she's living in Fall River. Right?
Yeah, she probably wants to put this nightmare behind her, man.
I mean, dude, she got arrested when she was 17 back in 1980, so it's like...
Right.
She's like in her 50s now. Pretty much spent most of her adult life behind bars.
Yeah. I mean, what'd you say? It was 1980s, right? Early 80s?
1980 was when she was arrested.
Right. So I was born in 79, so that's literally my entire life she spent in jail.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, I can see why she'd want to just, put that behind her. She's done her, she's paid her debt to society and she just wants to move on. The hell on with her life. I get it. Not that I get what they did or not that I condone what they did, but
No, I know exactly what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's my story. Well, not my story, but the story of the satanic panic, Fall River cult murders of 1979 and 1980.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's wild. But yeah, man. So how much
So
of
what do
that
you think?
how much of that story did you pull off for your movie? Like how much did you use that as a reference tool?
I'm glad you said that, bro. Because honestly, when I first was like,
Because I know you had talked at one point about doing like a documentary about Carl Drew or doing
well, here's the
something
deal,
or doing
man.
a story
When,
that's
when
similar to that.
when I first had ideas for making a movie back up, and I want to say it really started around the spring of 2024.
Yep.
I initially wanted to do it based on these murders.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you saying that.
I wanted to make a movie with a Carl Drew, with a Karen Marsden, with a Barbara Raposa. Like I wanted to do all that shit.
Yeah.
And a Robin Murphy. But as I started doing more and more research, and there's a lot of there's so many different stories here. It's like, oh, Carl Drew and Carl Davis did it. They were the leaders of the cult. But then, Carl Drew's in prison, and he wrote an autobiography, and he claims that he never even was a devil worshiper. And
Right.
a lot of people believe that Robin Murphy was the one that carried out all the murders, and she just blamed it on the men. Because how could a woman do those types of evil things to, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So as that shit was swimming through my head, I was like, yeah, I could make a really cool movie about this, but I also don't want to make a movie and then get slapped with a major lawsuit.
Right, because you rewrite the story and make it, or they just, like you said, there's so many different versions of it out there. So many different, everybody's got their own version of it.
Everybody's got their own version. These people are still alive, and
Yeah, that too.
there's nothing stopping. Say if I make a movie and I paint Carl Drew out in a way that he doesn't fancy,
Right.
there's nothing stopping that guy from coming after me with a legal suit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like my movie was originally, it was going to be kind of like a quote unquote based on a true story type of thing.
Yeah.
But as I went further and further down the rabbit hole, I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll leave it alone, and I'll just do my own little wacky horror movie that takes place in the Freetown State Forest.
Yeah. That's probably better anyways. Make your own version of it. That way you can control everything, You know what it is. It's nobody else's story.
Maybe years further down the road, say the res does well and deeper pockets. Maybe I would love to sit down with Carl Drew and Robin Murphy and kind of get everybody's story, and then kind of maybe put together a movie. That would be cool further on down the road.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But if I do something like that, I'd want Netflix or somebody acting as a co-counsel,
right?
In case this shit gets hairy,
Yeah, in case somebody does decide to throw suit at you. I hear you.
I mean, it's such a good. I mean, what happened to these people is horrible, but it's such a good story that it probably would make one hell of a movie someday.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
Oh yeah, I definitely do. I mean, somebody will come up with something like it. I'm surprised that not as many people have heard about it as because I don't think I'd heard about it until you started telling me.
Yeah, man, yeah. This was a big deal, especially where I'm from and where I grew up.
Right. Well, you grew up right in that area.
Yeah, man. I mean, my dad talked a lot about this shit when he used to take me hunting in the 90s in the Freetown State Forest.
Yeah.
Cause that guy Alden Alls,
Yeah, you told me.
he was the chief of police of the city of town of Freetown.
Yeah.
My dad was very good friends with that guy.
Yeah.
So like my dad went deer hunting with him, and he even showed my dad like, oh, this is where we found very little Ruta. This is where, like my dad knew where a lot of these spots were.
Yeah, yeah. Huh.
So
That's wild, man.
yeah.
That's a wild story.
So now, folks, when you hear about the Freetown State Forest, now you know why there's there's so much urban legend and lore to the place.
Yep, there's.
It's,
It's not just ghosts and Bigfoot, puckwudgies and UFOs and disappearing people, and it's Satanism and murders and dug up 1,800 corpses and dug up animals and.
You saw it when we went to the pet cemetery.
Oh yeah, like 90% of those graves were dug up.
Yep.
It's crazy. But all right, let's see. We wrap this one up, man.
Oh yeah.
All right, thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks for coming back every week. We love you for it. And that's a wrap. Get out there, find your spirits.